Okay, so today we are going to go ahead and cover the last day for Unit 8, and it's basically reviewing the area and perimeter of different shapes using the Pythagorean theorem, and then of course midpoints, okay? So let's start with number 1. It says a rectangle is graphed on the plane below. Which expression could be used to find the area of the rectangle? Okay, so first and foremost, we need to find the area of this shape. So because we know we're dealing with a rectangle, we know we have to do the length times the width. Okay, so let me go ahead and draw a rectangle right here. So I'm going to say this is the length, okay, and this is the width, okay, and this shape corresponds to that. So let's start with the length, okay, and I'm going to use the color purple. So the length is right here, and because it's a diagonal, we can't just count across the diagonal line. So we're going to have to create a right triangle, you see, to be able to find the distance of this line, which is also known as the length. So across from the 90-degree angle is your letter C. So the diagonal is C. The other two sides are going to be my letter A and my letter B. Thankfully, A is a vertical line, so I can go 1, 2, that's 2 units. And then side B is a horizontal, it's going in a horizontal direction, so I can go 1, 2, 3, 4. So side B is 4 units. Okay, so here's that shape. So I'm going to go ahead and work it out here. Okay, so we said this is C, this is 2, this is 4, that's B, and that's A. So using my theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, I'm going to get 2 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. So 2 squared plus 4 squared. If you cannot do that in your head, that's perfectly fine. Just go ahead and get decimals. 2 squared plus 4 squared. 4 squared. And that gives me 20. And then the opposite of a square is square root. So the square root of 20 gives me 4.5 if you round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so that means my length, okay, is 4.5. So I'm going to go over here and do 4.5 because that's what the length is. Now I'm going to find the width. The width is going to be this. Okay, and for that one, I'm just going to use the color orange. Okay, so I'm going to recreate a right triangle right there. Okay, across from the 90-degree angle is your letter C. Okay, and then the other two sides are A and B. As you can tell, A is just 1 unit, and as you can tell, B is 2 units. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and find the width, and for this one, I am going to use the color red. So let me recreate this little triangle. So we said this was C, this is 2, and that is 1. So now A squared plus B squared equals C squared. We have 1 squared plus 2 squared equals C squared. So 1 squared plus 2 squared is 5 because 2 squared is 4 plus 1 is 5. Okay? So now the square root of C squared is just the square root of 5. And of course, if you want to convert that into a decimal, make sure you use decimals. And that gives you 2.20 or 2.2. Okay? And that will be my width. Okay? So here's the thing, okay? If you notice down here, your answer choices are basically in square root form. We know that the length is square root of 20, which is also known as 4.5. For the width, we know it's the square root of 5, which is the same thing as 2.2. So if we're finding the area of this rectangle, we can write this out as 2 different ways, okay? The first way is to use the square root, okay? Square root of 20 times the square root of 5. Of course, if you don't like square roots, you can always convert each square root and say 4.5 times 2.2. Either way, whether you type it in like this or you type it in like that, you will get the area of that shape. But based on our answers, they don't want us to actually find the area of the rectangle. They just want us to set it up and tell them what the length is and what the width is so we can go ahead and find the area. So based on what we have, the only answer that matches that will be square root of 5 times the square root of 20, which is what we have. Okay, and of course, if you didn't see that, you could always go ahead and type in your values. So you can go into decimals and say 4.5 times 2.2, and then you can go down here and say square root of 5 to square root of 20, and you will get the same answer, the same area. And that's how you're going to know that that is the correct answer. But that's just going to be an extra step for you, okay? So anyways, there's, I believe, 2 problems on the SchoolNet assignment that are asking you to find the area and the perimeter. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. Now let's move on to the last problem, which is finding the midpoint. Okay, we're not going to do number 2. Okay, we're just going to do number 1. What are the points of the midpoint of the line segment with endpoints at those 2? So basically, endpoints basically means they're the end or the end points of a line. So the first one we have is 5, -6, and the other one is 8, -2. Remember, when you're finding the midpoint of something, you want to add the x's together, divide by 2. Add the y values together and divide by 2. So if you set up your 2 points, okay, you want to add your x's. Remember, this is x and this is y, okay? So if you add your x's together, that will be 5 plus 8 is 13, and then add your y's together, which is -6 plus a -2 is a -8, okay? And then divide by 2. Because remember, midpoint means halfway. And when you're finding halfway of something, you want to cut it in half, which is dividing by 2. So there's your answer. Of course, if you notice, there's no fractions. So let's go ahead and convert that. So 13 divided by 2 is just 6.5. And then -8 divided by 2 is just -4. And of course, your final answer will be B. And that's how you find the midpoint. So the midpoint will be 6.5 -4, which will be right there, halfway between those 2 endpoints. Okay? If you have any questions, just let me know.